The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Han pressed his face against the window like a child seeing snow for the first time. Before him floated the most beautiful world he had ever seen. It was called Velaris Prime, the heart of the Galactic Empire that ruled over 3,000 star systems. The planet glowed with soft purple and gold colors. Giant rings made of crystal and light surrounded it. Thousands of ships moved around it like fireflies dancing in the night. Han had seen many planets during his 2 years as a junior envoy for Earth, but nothing came close to this. "First time seeing the capital?" asked a voice behind him. Han turned to see his senior officer, a woman named Gina. She was 10 years older than him and had been doing this job since before Earth made first contact with alien life. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were kind. "Yes, ma'am," Han said. "It's beautiful." "It is," Gina agreed. "But don't let the beauty fool you. This place is dangerous. Every species in the galaxy has sent their best people to this ceremony. They will all be watching each other. They will all be looking for weakness." Han nodded. He understood. The Galactic Unity Ceremony happened once every 50 years. It was a time when all the species of the galaxy came together to renew their promises of peace. But it was also a time for politics, for deals made in dark corners, for old enemies to become new friends, and old friends to become new enemies. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 20 years. In that time, humanity had proven itself to be hardworking and honest. But they were still seen as children by the older races, small, weak, not important enough to worry about. That was why Han was here. He was not a great diplomat or a famous general. He was just a junior envoy sent to fill a seat and make Earth's delegation look bigger than it really was. He had no real power, no real purpose. He was just a body to fill space. The ship began its descent toward the planet. Han watched as they passed through the crystal rings. Up close, he could see that they were not natural. They had been built by the Velaris people thousands of years ago. Each crystal was the size of a mountain, and each one held the memories of their ancestors. "The Velaris are the oldest race in the known galaxy," Gina said, standing beside him now. They were building starships when humans were still living in caves. Their queen has ruled for over 300 years. She has seen empires rise and fall. She has watched stars die and be reborn. What is she like? Han asked. Gina was quiet for a moment. "I have never met her. Few have. She stays in her palace most of the time. But I have heard stories. They say she can read minds. They say she can see the future. They say she once stopped a war just by looking at the enemy general." Han felt a chill run down his spine. "Are those stories true? Who knows?" Gina shrugged. "But one thing is certain. Queen Yuna is the most powerful being in the galaxy. When she speaks, everyone listens. When she moves, everyone watches. Today, at the ceremony, she will sit on her throne and look down at all of us. And we will all feel like insects." The ship landed on a platform made of white stone. When the doors opened, Han was hit by warm air that smelled like flowers and honey. The sky above was a soft orange color, and 2 suns hung low on the horizon. Aliens of every shape and size walked past them. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had too many eyes, and some had none at all. Han tried not to stare, but it was hard. He had studied alien species in school, but seeing them in person was different. Each one moved with purpose. Each one wore clothes that showed their rank and power. Each one looked at the humans with curiosity or disinterest. "Stay close," Gina said. "And remember what I told you. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact with anyone important. And whatever you do, don't draw attention to yourself." Han nodded again. He was good at not drawing attention. He had spent his whole life being invisible. In school, he was the quiet kid who sat in the back. At work, he was the one who did his job and went home. He had no great ambitions, no dreams of glory. He just wanted to do his part and live a simple life. They walked through the streets of the capital city. Buildings taller than anything on Earth rose around them. Some were made of glass that changed color with the light. Some were made of living plants that grew and moved on their own. Some floated in the air, held up by technology that Han could not understand. The ceremony was being held in the Grand Hall, a building so large that it had its own weather system. Clouds floated near the ceiling, and sometimes it rained inside. The floor was made of a material that felt like walking on water. Every step Han took sent ripples spreading out around him. "Here's your seat assignment," Gina said, handing him a small card. "You are in Section 12, Row 45, Seat 8. Han looked at the card. Section 12 was on the far left side of the hall, almost against the wall. Row 45 was near the back. Seat 8 was at the very end of the row, right next to an emergency exit. It was the worst seat in the entire hall. "I know it's not great," Gina said, seeing his face. "But we are a small delegation. We take what we can get. Just sit there, stay quiet, and watch the ceremony. When it's over, we will leave. Simple." Han nodded for the third time. "Yes, ma'am." Gina patted his shoulder. "You're a good kid, Han. I know this isn't exciting. But sometimes, the most important thing you can do is just be present. Just show up. That's what humanity does. We show up, even when no one expects us to. Even when no one wants us to. We show up." She walked away to join the other senior members of the delegation. They would be sitting in the front rows, where the important people sat. Han watched them go, then looked at his card again. Section 12. Row 45. Seat 8. He started walking. The Grand Hall was filling up fast. Thousands of aliens were taking their seats, talking in languages that his translator struggled to keep up with. The sound was like a storm of voices, each one different, each one strange. Han found Section 12. It was exactly where he expected it to be, far from the center, far from the action. The seats here were smaller and less comfortable than the ones in the front. The view of the main stage was blocked by pillars and other obstacles. He found row 45. Most of the seats were already taken by aliens from minor species like his own. They looked tired and bored. This was not their first ceremony. They knew that nothing exciting would happen to them. They were here to fill space, just like Han. He found seat 8. It was empty. So were seats 9 and 10 beside it. In fact, the last 3 seats in the row were all empty. Han checked his card again to make sure he was in the right place. He was. He sat down. The seat was hard and cold. The view was terrible. He could barely see the main stage where the throne stood. He could barely hear the announcements being made. He was so far from everything that he might as well have been on a different planet. But Han didn't mind. He liked being invisible. He liked being forgotten. It was comfortable. It was safe. No one would bother him here. No one would ask him questions he couldn't answer. No one would expect him to be anything more than he was. He settled into his seat and waited. The ceremony would start in 1 hour. Until then, he had nothing to do but watch and listen. He watched the aliens around him. He listened to their conversations. Most of them were talking about trade deals and political alliances. Some were gossiping about other species. A few were complaining about the food. Han closed his eyes and tried to relax. The warm air made him sleepy. The soft hum of voices was like a lullaby. He thought about home. He thought about his small apartment on Earth. He thought about his mother, who had cried when he told her he was going to space. She had been so proud and so scared at the same time. "I'll be fine," he had told her. "I'm not important enough for anything bad to happen to me." She had laughed at that. But it was true. Han was nobody, and nobody ever got into trouble. A sound made him open his eyes. The voices in the hall had suddenly gone quiet. Not just quiet, silent. Completely, totally silent. Han sat up and looked around. Every alien in the hall was staring in the same direction, toward the main entrance, toward the giant doors that had just opened. A figure stood in the doorway. Even from his terrible seat in the back corner, Han could see her clearly. She seemed to glow with her own light. She was tall and graceful, with skin like pale moonlight and hair like flowing silver. She wore a dress made of stars, actual stars, tiny points of light that moved and danced around her body. Queen Yuna had arrived. Han felt his heart stop. He had seen pictures of her before, but they did not do her justice. She was not just beautiful. She was something beyond beauty, something beyond words. Looking at her was like looking at the sun. It hurt, but you couldn't look away. She began to walk. Every step she took was slow and deliberate. Every eye in the hall followed her. The other aliens lowered their heads as she passed. Some even dropped to their knees. The air itself seemed to bend around her, as if the universe was making way for its queen. Han expected her to walk to the throne. It stood on the main stage, tall and golden, waiting for her. All she had to do was walk straight ahead, climb the steps, and sit down. The ceremony would begin, and Han could go back to being invisible, but she didn't walk to the throne. She turned. She turned left, toward section 12, toward the back corner, toward the worst seats in the hall. Toward Han. His blood went cold. This was impossible. This made no sense. Why would the Queen of the Silence in the Grand Hall was so deep that Han could hear his own heartbeat? It was fast and loud, like a drum being beaten by a madman. He was sure everyone in the hall could hear it too. Queen Yuna sat beside him, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. She arranged her dress made of stars, making sure it didn't touch the floor. She folded her hands in her lap. She looked straight ahead at the main stage, where her empty throne stood waiting. Han didn't move. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. He was afraid that if he did anything, she would realize she had made a mistake. She would stand up and walk away. She would go to her throne where she belonged, and everything would go back to normal. But she didn't move. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The silence in the hall continued. No one spoke. No one dared to speak. Every eye was fixed on the queen and the human sitting beside her. Finally, someone did something. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms stood up in the front row. Han recognized him from his studies. He was Lord Kavi, the leader of the Taurian Collective. His species controlled hundreds of star systems and had the largest military fleet in the galaxy. "Your Majesty," Lord Kavi said, his voice booming through the hall. "Your throne awaits. The ceremony cannot begin without you." Queen Yuna turned her head slowly to look at him. Her silver eyes showed no emotion. "The ceremony will begin when I say it begins, Lord Kavi. I am the queen. The ceremony waits for me, not the other way around." Lord Kavi's blue skin turned slightly purple. It was a sign of embarrassment in his species. He lowered his head, sat back down without another word. Queen Yuna turned back to face the front. A small smile played on her lips. Han still hadn't moved. He was still staring straight ahead, too scared to even look at her. His mind was racing with questions. Why was she here? What did she want? Was this some kind of test? Was he about to be arrested? Executed? Thrown into space? "You can breathe, you know," the queen said softly, not looking at him. "I won't bite." Han let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. It came out as a shaky sound that was half laugh and half sob. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I don't understand what's happening. What's to understand? She asked. I walked in. I saw an empty seat. I sat down. It's quite simple. But your throne has been in the same place for 300 years. It's not going anywhere. It can wait a little longer. Han finally found the courage to turn his head and look at her. Up close, she was even more breathtaking. Her skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her silver hair moved gently, even though there was no wind. Her dress of stars sparkled and swirled around her, but it was her eyes that caught his attention the most. They were not cold or distant like he had expected. They were warm, curious, almost playful. You're staring, she said. Han quickly looked away. His face felt hot. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to. It's fine. Everyone stares. I'm used to it. She paused. What's your name? Han, he said. My name is Han. I'm a junior envoy from Earth. Earth. She said the word slowly, as if tasting it. The human homeworld. I've heard interesting things about your species. You have? Han was surprised. Earth was such a small part of the galactic community. He didn't think anyone important knew about them. Oh, yes. Your species is quite the topic of discussion among the older races. Some think you're dangerous. Some think you're foolish. Some think you're both. She smiled. I think you're fascinating. Han didn't know what to say to that. He had never been called fascinating before. He had been called boring, quiet, unremarkable, forgettable, but never fascinating. The murmuring in the hall was getting louder. The aliens were talking among themselves, trying to figure out what was happening. Han could hear snippets of conversation from nearby. Who is that human? Why is the Queen sitting with him? Is he a spy? A secret agent? Maybe he's her lover. Han's face turned even redder at that last comment. He wanted to disappear. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. They're talking about us, Queen Yuna said calmly. I know. I can hear them. Does it bother you? Han thought about it. A little. I'm not used to being noticed. The Queen made a sound that might have been a laugh. Neither am I. Everyone looks at me all the time, but no one really sees me. They see the crown. They see the power. They see what they want to see. She paused. But they don't see me. Han looked at her again. This time, he didn't look away. What do you mean? She met his eyes. For a moment, the noise of the hall seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, sitting in the back corner, having a conversation that no one else could hear. For 300 years, I have sat on that throne, she said. For 300 years, I have listened to speeches and signed treaties and made decisions that affect billions of lives. For 300 years, I have been the queen, the ruler, the symbol. She looked away, toward the distant throne. But I have forgotten what it's like to just be a person, to sit in a simple seat, to talk to someone without politics getting in the way. Han was quiet for a moment. He was starting to understand something. The Queen hadn't sat beside him by accident. She had done it on purpose, but not because of him. She had done it because of the seat. This seat, he said slowly. It means something to you. Queen Yuna nodded. You're smarter than you look. That's not hard. I look pretty stupid most of the time. She actually laughed at that. A real laugh, not the polite sound that royalty usually made. It was bright and warm and genuine. Several aliens in the nearby rows turned to stare at them with shocked expressions. You're funny, she said. I like funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just honest. Even better. Honesty is rare in this place. She gestured at the hall around them. Everyone here is playing a game. They smile when they don't mean it. They lie when they should tell the truth. They pretend to be friends while plotting against each other. Han nodded. He had seen enough politics in his short career to know that she was right. Is that why you came back here? To get away from the games? Partly. She was quiet for a moment. And partly because this seat holds memories for me. Good memories. From a time before I was queen. Han wanted to ask more, but he felt like he was already pushing his luck. He was a junior envoy from a minor species. She was the queen of the galaxy. There was no reason for her to share her personal feelings with him, but she continued anyway. When I was young, she said, my father used to bring me to this hall for the ceremonies. He was not the king. That was my grandfather. But he was a prince, and he had duties to attend to. I would sit beside him and watch the proceedings. Where did he sit? Han asked. She pointed at seat 10, the empty seat next to them. Right there. He always chose the seats in the back. He said that you could learn more about people by watching them from a distance. He said that the view from the throne showed you what people wanted you to see, but the view from the corner showed you who they really were. Han looked at the empty seat. It was just like his, hard, cold, with a terrible view of the stage. But to her, it was something more. It was a memory of her father. A connection to a time when she was just a girl and not a queen. What happened to him? Han asked softly. Your father? Queen Yuna's eyes grew distant. He died, a long time ago. An assassination. Political enemies who thought that by killing him, they could weaken my grandfather's rule. She paused. They were wrong. My grandfather hunted them down and destroyed them completely. Their species no longer exists. Their homeworld is now a dead rock floating in space. Han felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Velarus people's capacity for revenge. Now he knew those stories were true. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have asked. No, it's fine. I don't mind talking about him. He was a good man. A kind man. He would have been a great king. She smiled sadly. He taught me many things. How to lead. How to judge character. How to see past the masks that people wear. And he taught me the value of sitting in the corner. The value of sitting in the corner? Yes. He said that the people who choose the corner seats are often the most interesting. They don't seek attention. They don't want power or glory. They just want to observe and understand. He said that if you want to know the true nature of a species, look at the ones who sit in the corners. Han felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was like recognition. Like being seen for the first time. That's why you're here, he said. You're not just remembering your father. You're doing what he taught you. You're observing. Queen Yuna turned to look at him. Her silver eyes studied his face with an intensity that made him feel naked. Like she could see through his skin and bones and into his very soul. Yes, she said finally. I am observing. And do you know what I see when I look at you? Han shook his head. I see a young man who was given the worst seat in the hall. A seat that says he is not important. A seat that says he does not matter. And instead of complaining, instead of asking for something better, he sat down without a word. He accepted his place without bitterness or anger. Han shrugged. It's just a seat. It doesn't matter where I sit. The ceremony will happen with or without me. That is exactly my point. The queen leaned closer to him. Her voice dropped to a whisper. For 300 years, I have watched the great powers of TH. The ceremony lasted for 6 hours. 6 long hours of speeches and declarations and treaties being read aloud. Han sat in his corner seat and tried to pay attention, but his mind kept wandering back to the conversation he had with the queen. She sat on her throne now, looking every bit the ruler she was supposed to be. Her back was straight. Her face was calm. Her silver eyes watched the proceedings with careful attention. She looked nothing like the woman who had laughed at his joke just hours ago. Happened. Had the Queen of the Galaxy really sat beside him and talked to him like he was a friend? It seemed impossible now. Like a dream, he was already forgetting. The aliens around Han kept glancing at him. They whispered to each other when they thought he wasn't looking. He heard fragments of their conversations. Secret lover, hidden prince, spy, assassin. The rumors were already spreading. By tomorrow, they would have turned into wild stories that had nothing to do with the truth. Han didn't care about the rumors. He cared about the Queen's invitation. She had asked to continue their conversation. Was she serious? Would she even remember him after the ceremony ended? Finally, the last speech was finished. The last treaty was signed. The last hand was shaken. The ceremony was over. The aliens began to leave the hall, talking among themselves about the deals they had made and the alliances they had formed. Han stayed in his seat. He didn't know what to do. Should he go to the Queen? Should he wait for her to come to him? Should he just leave and pretend none of this had happened? There you are. Han looked up. Gina was standing in the aisle, looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. I've been looking for you. We need to talk. About what? About what? Gina laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. About the fact that you spent half an hour talking to the most powerful being in the galaxy. About the fact that Lord Cavi is now asking questions about who you are. About the fact that our entire delegation is in chaos because of you. Han felt his stomach drop. I didn't mean to cause trouble. She just sat down next to me. I didn't know what to do. Gina sighed. She sat down in the seat where the Queen had been sitting. I know. I saw the whole thing. You didn't do anything wrong. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what people think happened. What do they think happened? They think you're something you're not. They think Earth is playing some kind of political game. They think we sent you to get close to the Queen on purpose. She rubbed her temples. I've spent the last 3 hours trying to convince the other delegates that we had nothing to do with this. Most of them don't believe me. Han felt terrible. He had never wanted any of this. He had just wanted to sit in his corner and be invisible. I'm sorry. I should have. I don't know. I should have done something. What could you have done? Told the Queen to go away? Gina shook her head. No. You did the only thing you could do. You were polite. You were respectful. You answered her questions honestly. She paused. What did she ask you anyway? Han thought back to the conversation. She asked my name. She asked about Earth. She told me about her father. Gina's eyes went wide. She told you about her father? The one who was assassinated? Yes. She said he used to sit in this seat. That's why she came here. To remember him. Gina was silent for a long moment. Her face had gone pale. Han, do you understand what that means? The Queen never talks about her father. Never. It's forbidden to even mention him in the royal court. She punished the last person who asked about him by sending them to the Outer Rim for 50 years. Han swallowed hard. She seemed sad, but not angry. She said she liked talking about him. To you. She liked talking about him to you. Gina leaned closer. Han, I don't know what's happening here, but something about you has caught the Queen's attention. Something that made her break centuries of protocol to sit in the corner with a junior envoy. Do you have any idea what that could be? Han shook his head. No, I'm nobody. I keep telling everyone that. Maybe that's exactly why she chose you. Before Han could ask what she meant, a sound made them both turn. A group of figures was walking toward them through the now empty hall. They wore robes of deep purple, and their faces were hidden behind masks made of crystal. Han recognized them from his studies. They were the Queen's Guard, the most elite soldiers in the galaxy. Each one had been trained for over a century. Each one could kill a dozen enemies without breaking a sweat, and they were coming straight toward him. Gina stood up quickly. "What is this? What do you want?" The lead guard stopped a few feet away. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. "The Queen requests the presence of the human called Han. He is to come with us immediately." Han felt his heart start racing again. "Come with you where?" "To the Queen's private chambers. She wishes to continue your conversation." Gina stepped forward. "This is highly unusual. Our delegation was not informed of any private meeting. I must insist on accompanying. The invitation is for Han alone." The guard didn't even look at her. The Queen's instructions were clear. He comes alone or he doesn't come at all. Han looked at Gina. Her face was tight with worry. "You don't have to go," she said quietly. "You can refuse. We can leave the planet tonight." Han thought about it. He could refuse. He could walk away and never think about any of this again. He could go back to his quiet life, his boring job, his invisible existence. But he didn't want to. For the first time in his life, something interesting was happening to him. Someone had noticed him. Someone had found him worthy of attention. Even if it didn't make sense, even if it was dangerous, he wanted to know why. "I'll go," he said. Gina grabbed his arm. "Han, think about this. We don't know what she wants. We don't know if this is a trap. If the Queen wanted to trap me, she could have done it already. She's the most powerful being in the galaxy. She doesn't need tricks." Gina hesitated. Then she let go of his arm. "Fine, but if anything happens to you, I'm going to be very angry." Han smiled. "I'll try not to get killed then." He turned to the guard. "Lead the way." The guards surrounded him as they walked. Han felt like a prisoner being taken to execution. The hallways they passed through were long and empty. The walls were made of the same crystal as the rings around the planet, and they glowed with a soft inner light. They climbed stairs and passed through doors that opened at a touch. Each door was guarded by more soldiers, each one watching Han with suspicious eyes. He was a human in the heart of the Valoris Empire. He didn't belong here. Finally, they stopped before a door that was larger than the others. It was made of something that looked like frozen moonlight. Patterns swirled across its surface, forming shapes that almost looked like words. "The Queen is inside," the lead guard said. "You will enter alone. You will be respectful. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not touch anything. You will not let him in," a voice called from behind the door. "And stop scaring him with your rules." The guard's posture stiffened. "Yes, Your Majesty." The door swung open. Han stepped through. The room on the other side took his breath away. It was smaller than he expected, but every inch of it was beautiful. The floor was covered with soft carpets that felt like clouds under his feet. The walls were lined with shelves holding books and objects from 1,000 different worlds. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars above in all their glory. And in the center of the room, sitting on a simple chair, was Queen Yuna. She had changed out of her dress made of stars. Now she wore simple clothes that might have been worn by anyone on any planet. Her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. Her feet were bare. She looked almost normal. "You came," she said, smiling. "I wasn't sure you would." Han bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, thank you for the invitation. Stop bowing. And stop calling me Your Majesty." She gestured to another chair across from her. "Sit. Talk to me like you did before." Han walked slowly to the chair and sat down. His heart was still racing, but it was starting to slow down. There was something about this room, about the way the Queen was sitting, that made him feel less afraid. "I don't know what to call you then," he said honestly. In my training, they said never to address royalty by their personal name. Your training was for dealing with normal royalty. I am not normal. She smiled. Call me Yuna. Just Yuna. Han tested the name on his tongue. Yuna, it felt strange. Like calling a mountain by a nickname. That wasn't so hard, was it? She leaned back in her chair. Now, where were we? Before that annoying Lord Cavi interrupted us. Han tried to remember. You were telling me about your father. About how he taught you to observe from the corner. Ah, yes. A shadow passed over Yuna's face, but it was gone quickly. My father was a great observer. He used to say that the galaxy was like a stage, and everyone was playing a part. The trick was to figure out who was acting and who was being genuine. And you think I'm genuine? I know you are. I can tell. She tapped her temple. One of the gifts of my species. We can sense emotions. Lies have a certain texture. They feel rough, scratchy, like sand on silk. She looked at him intently. You have no sand, Han. Everything about you is smooth. Han didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself as particularly honest. He told white lies like everyone else. He smiled when he didn't feel like smiling. He said he was fine when he wasn't. I'm not as honest as you think, he admitted. Everyone lies sometimes. Yes, but there's a difference between small lies and big on the news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within days, everyone knew about the human who had caught the Queen's attention. Han's face was on every news broadcast. His name was spoken in every council chamber. His life story, what little there was of it, was examined and debated by experts across 1,000 worlds. He was still on Valoris Prime. Yuna had asked him to stay, and he had agreed. He didn't know why he agreed. He had a job to return to, a life to get back to. But something about her request had made it impossible to refuse. The Earth delegation had gone home without him. Gina had argued against it, but the orders from Earth were clear. Stay close to the Queen. Learn what you can. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Han didn't feel like he was on a mission. He felt like he was in a dream he couldn't wake up from. Every day, Yuna called for him. They would sit in her private chambers and talk for hours. She asked him about Earth, about humans, about their history and their culture and their dreams. He told her everything he knew, which wasn't much. He was a junior envoy, not a historian or a philosopher. But she seemed to find value in his simple answers. In return, she told him about Valoris, about its history spanning millions of years, about the wars and the peace and the rise and fall of empires. She told him about her family, her grandfather, who had ruled for 1,000 years before passing the throne to her, her mother, who had died giving birth to her, her father, whose memory still haunted these halls. She told him about being queen. It's lonely, she said one evening, as the twin suns sat outside her window. I have advisors and guards and servants. I have allies and enemies and everyone in between. But I don't have friends. I don't have anyone who sees me as just Yuna. Han was sitting across from her, as he did every evening now. You have me. She smiled at that. Yes, I have you. For however long this lasts. What do you mean? Yuna was quiet for a moment. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. I told you something was coming. A war. The greatest war the galaxy has ever seen. Han nodded. You mentioned it. But you didn't explain. I couldn't. Not then. I needed to be sure about you first. She turned to face him. I'm sure now. Han felt a weight settle in his chest. He had known, somewhere deep inside, that there was more to her interest in him than just loneliness. The Queen of the Galaxy didn't befriend random humans for no reason. Tell me, he said. Why? Yuna returned to her chair. She sat down slowly, as if the weight of what she was about to say pressed down on her shoulders. 3 years ago, our long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the galaxy. Ships, thousands of them, maybe millions, coming from beyond the Great Void, from somewhere outside our charts. Han felt cold. Invaders? We don't know yet. We've tried to make contact. They don't respond. They just keep coming, slowly but steadily, moving toward the heart of the galaxy. Why haven't I heard about this? Why hasn't anyone heard about this? Because I chose not to tell them. Yuna's voice was heavy with guilt. I've been keeping it secret, trying to understand what we're facing before I cause a panic, trying to find a way to stop them before anyone has to know they exist. Han stood up. He couldn't sit still anymore. But if there's an invasion coming, people need to prepare. The military needs to mobilize. The military of which species? Yuna cut him off. The Taurians? The Kasari? The dozen other empires who have spent the last 1,000 years fighting each other. Do you think they would unite against a common enemy? Do you think Lord Cavi would put aside his ambitions to work with his rivals? Han wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe that faced with extinction, the galaxy would come together. But he knew better. He had seen how the alien delegates treated each other. The suspicion, the hatred, the old wounds that never healed. No, he admitted. They would probably fight each other for the right to fight alone. Exactly. If I announce this threat, the galaxy will tear itself apart trying to respond. The fragile peace we have will shatter. And by the time the invaders arrive, there will be nothing left worth saving. Han sat back down. His mind was racing. So what's your plan? You must have a plan. Yuna smiled, but there was no happiness in it. I have the beginning of a plan. That's why I've been looking, searching, waiting for the right moment to act. What were you looking for? Someone to help me. Someone who could do what I cannot. She met his eyes. I need an ambassador, Han. Not a diplomat who plays political games. A true ambassador. Someone who can go to the other species and speak to them honestly. Someone who can make them see that they need to unite. Someone who has no agenda except survival. Han stared at her. You want me to be that ambassador? Yes, but I'm nobody. I have no power, no influence. The other species don't even know who I am. They know now. Yuna leaned forward. The whole galaxy knows your name because of what happened at the ceremony. They're all asking the same question. Why did the Queen choose this human? What makes him special? Nothing makes me special. I'm just me. That's exactly what makes you special. Yuna's voice grew passionate. Don't you see? Every other ambassador in the galaxy represents their species' interests. They negotiate for advantage. They trade favors. They lie and manipulate because that's what they're trained to do. But you have no training. You have no agenda. When you speak, people will know you're telling the truth. Han thought about this. It sounded reasonable when she said it. But he couldn't shake the feeling that she was overestimating him. What if I fail? What if they don't listen to me? Then we try something else. But I don't think you'll fail. She reached out and took his hand again, like she had before. My father taught me to see people, remember? To see past the masks and into the soul. When I look at you, I see someone who can change the galaxy. Not with force. Not with politics. With simple, honest truth. Han looked at their joined hands. His thoughts were a storm. A week ago, he had been a junior envoy with no future. Now the Queen of the Galaxy was asking him to save everyone. I need to know more, he said finally. About the invaders. About what we're facing. I can't convince anyone of anything if I don't understand it myself. Yuna nodded. Of course. Come with me. She stood and led him out of her chambers, through hallways he had never seen before. The guards following them were silent. They descended stairs that seemed to go down forever, into the depths of the palace. Finally, they reached a door made of solid black material. It had no handles or controls that Han could see. Yuna placed her palm against it, and it slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond was a room filled with screens and displays. Images and data covered every surface. In the center floated a holographic projection of the galaxy, with a red marker at its edge showing the location of the invaders. "This is our intelligence center," Yuna said. "Everything we know about them is here." Han walked slowly toward the galactic map. The red marker was small, but as he got closer, he could see it was actually made up of countless tiny dots. Each dot was a ship. There were more ships than he could count. "How many?" he asked. "Our best estimate is around 2 million vessels. Some are small scouts. Others are the size of moons." Yuna came to stand beside him. "We've managed to capture a few images of their largest ships." She waved her hand, and a new image appeared. It was a ship unlike anything Han had ever seen. It was massive, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move. There was something organic about it, like it had been grown rather than built. "We don't know what they are," Yuna said. "We don't know where they come from. We don't know what they want. They don't respond to any communication. They don't stop to investigate anything. They just keep coming." "At what speed?" "At their current pace, they'll reach the first inhabited systems in about 3 years. The core worlds in 5. Han did the math in his head. 5 years. That wasn't much time to unite a galaxy that had been divided for millennia. What do we know about their technology? Their weapons?" Yuna waved her hand again. The image changed to show one of the alien ships engaging a Valaris patrol. It lasted less than 10 seconds. The patrol was destroyed completely. "They're more advanced than us," she said. "Their weapons cut through our shields like they're not there. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable. In a direct fight, we don't stand a chance. Then how do we stop them?" "We don't, not alone." Yuna turned to face him. "But together, if every species in the galaxy contributed to a unified defense, we might have a chance. The Taurians have the largest fleet. The Kesari have the strongest shields. The Valaris have the most advanced sensors. If we combined our strengths, you think we could win? I think we could survive. And survival is all we can hope for right now." Han turned back to the holographic map. The red marker seemed to pulse like a beating heart. 2 million ships, coming to destroy everything he knew. He thought about Earth, his mother, his small apartment, the life he had left behind. If the invaders weren't stopped, all of it would be gone. "Okay," he said. "Tell me what I need to do." Yuna's eyes brightened with something like hope. "First, you need to learn everything we know about every species in the galaxy. Their histories, their leaders, their weaknesses, their strengths. You need to 1 year had passed since Han sat in the corner seat at the Grand Unity ceremony. 1 year of studying, learning, preparing for the moment that would define everything. He stood now in the same grand hall where it had all begun. But this time, he wasn't sitting in the corner. This time, he was standing at the center of the stage, looking out at the thousands of delegates who had gathered from every corner of the galaxy. They looked back at him with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Some faces showed open hostility. Lord Kavi sat in the front row, his blue skin dark with contempt. Others showed cautious interest, wondering what the human who had captured the Queen's attention would say. Behind him, Queen Yuna sat on her throne. She had called this special assembly herself, demanding the presence of every species leader. No one had dared to refuse, but she would not be the one to speak. That task fell to Han. His heart was pounding. His hands were sweating. His throat felt tight. Despite all his preparation, he was terrified. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Rulers of empires, commanders of fleets, holders of ancient titles and ancient grudges. And he was just Han, a junior envoy from Earth, a nobody who had been raised to be invisible. But he wasn't nobody anymore. He couldn't be. Not if he wanted to save everyone he had ever known. He cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was carried by hidden speakers to every corner of the massive hall. "I know many of you are confused about why you're here. Some of you are angry. Some of you think this is a waste of time. I understand. I felt the same way when I was first told what I'm about to tell you." He paused and looked at the faces before him. Aliens of every shape and size. Species that had been enemies for longer than humanity had existed. "There is something coming," he said. "Something that will change everything. Something that will destroy everything we know unless we work together to stop it." The murmuring in the hall began immediately. Han waited for it to quiet down before continuing. 1 year ago, Belarus sensors detected a fleet at the edge of the galaxy. A fleet of millions of ships coming from somewhere beyond our charts. We don't know what they are. We don't know what they want. But we know what they will do if we don't stop them. He waved his hand, and the holographic projection he had prepared came to life above him. The galaxy spread out in all its glory, with the red marker of the invaders pulsing at its edge. At their current speed, they will reach the outer systems in 2 years. The core worlds in 4. Every model we've run, every simulation we've created, shows the same result. No single species, no single empire, can stand against them alone. Lord Cavi stood up. "This is absurd. A human child lecturing us about military threats? Where is your proof? Where are your ships?" Han had expected this. He had prepared for it. "I have no ships, Lord Cavi. I have no military training. I am exactly what you say I am. A human child who knows nothing about war." He met the Taurian leader's eyes. "But Queen Yuna has ships. She has military training. She has watched empires rise and fall for 300 years. And she believes me. Are you calling her a liar?" Lord Cavi's face went purple, but he said nothing. To insult the Queen directly would be an act of war. Han turned back to the assembly. "I know what you're thinking. Why should you trust humans? We've only been part of the galactic community for 20 years. We have no power, no influence, no history." He stepped forward, closer to the edge of the stage. "But maybe that's exactly why you should listen to us. We have no old grudges. We have no ancient enemies. We don't care about the wars you fought 1,000 years ago. We don't care about the insults your ancestors exchanged. We care about one thing: survival." He pointed at the holographic map. "In 4 years, none of your histories will matter. None of your grudges will matter. The invaders will not stop to ask which species you are or what treaties you've signed. They will destroy everything. Your worlds, your people, your memories. Everything you've built over millions of years will be erased like writing on sand." The hall was silent now. Every eye was fixed on him. "I know this is hard to accept. I know it's easier to focus on old enemies than new ones. I know it's more comfortable to argue about seats in a ceremony hall than to face the end of everything we know." He thought about his mother, about Earth, about all the people who had no idea what was coming. But comfort won't save us. Pride won't save us. The only thing that can save us is each other. He took a breath. This was the moment. The point where everything could go right or terribly wrong. "I'm not asking you to forget your differences. I'm not asking you to become friends with species you've hated for generations. I'm asking you to put those differences aside. Just for a little while. Just long enough to survive." He turned and looked at Yuna. She nodded slightly, giving him the courage to continue. "Queen Yuna has authorized me to propose something that has never been done before. A grand alliance. Not just a treaty or a pact. A true union of all species. Sharing technology. Sharing resources. Sharing the burden of defense." The murmuring started again, louder this time. Some delegates were shaking their heads. Others were talking urgently to their aides. Lord Cavi looked like he was about to explode. Han raised his voice. "I know what you're going to say. It's impossible. The Taurians will never share their fleet technology. The Khazari will never reveal their shield frequencies. The old empires will never cooperate with the young ones." He smiled. It was a sad smile, full of understanding. "You're right. Under normal circumstances, it would never work. Everyone would be too afraid of being betrayed. Too afraid of giving up advantage. Too afraid of looking weak." He pointed at himself. "That's why Queen Yuna chose me. A human, a nobody. Someone with no power and no agenda and nothing to gain. I will serve as the coordinator of the alliance. All technology sharing will go through me. All resource allocation will be supervised by me. If anyone betrays the alliance, I will know. And everyone else will know too." Lord Cavi finally erupted. "This is madness. You expect us to trust our military secrets to a human? A child from a primitive world? We could crush Earth with a single fleet." Han nodded. "Yes, you could. That's exactly my point." The Taurian leader stopped, confused. "What? You could crush Earth easily. We're small, weak, primitive. We're not a threat to anyone." Han spread his hands. "That's why you can trust me. Because I have nothing to gain by betraying you. If I tried to use your secrets against you, you would destroy my planet in an instant. My family, my friends, everyone I love." He looked around the hall. "I am the perfect mediator because I am powerless. Because humans are powerless. We have no ambition for empire. We have no dreams of conquest. We just want to survive. To live. To continue existing in this beautiful, terrifying galaxy." He stepped back toward the center of the stage. "That's what humanity offers the Alliance. Not military strength. Not advanced technology. Just honesty. Trust. A neutral party who has everything to lose and nothing to gain." He paused. "And one more thing. Hope." The word hung in the air. Han saw confusion on many faces. Hope was not a word they used often in galactic politics. Humans have only existed for a small moment in the history of the universe. We're young. We're ignorant. We've made countless mistakes. But somehow, we keep going. We keep reaching for the stars. We keep believing that tomorrow will be better than today. He thought about the first ship that had traveled between stars. The frozen crew who had died on their journey but went anyway. 50 years ago, humans sent a ship to explore the galaxy. The crew knew they would never come back. They knew they would die in the darkness between stars. But they went anyway, because they believed that what they learned would help the people who came after them. He looked at Yuna again. She was watching him with shining eyes. That's what humanity does. We sacrifice for the future. We plant trees whose shade we will never enjoy. We build things we will never see completed, because we believe in something bigger than ourselves. He turned back to the assembly. Join the alliance. Share your strength. Trust each other. Just this once. And I promise you, on my life, on the life of every human on Earth, we will stand beside you. We will fight beside you. We will die beside you if we have to. His voice rose. Because that's what we do. We show up, even when no one expects us to. Even when everyone thinks we're too small, too weak, too young. We show up, and we don't give up." He finished speaking. The silence in the hall was absolute. Then, slowly a figure rose in the back of the room. It was an alien from a species Han had studied extensively. The Vori. They were ancient, almost as old as the Valaris. They had stayed neutral in every conflict for the last 10,000 years. The Vori delegate bowed deeply to Han. "Humanity's words carry the weight of truth," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "The Vori will join the alliance." Another figure stood, then another, and another. Species after species, rising to declare their support. Some were eager, some were hesitant, but they rose. Lord Kavi remained seated, his face a mask of stubborn pride. His aides whispered urgently in his ears, but he shook his head. Han watched him. He knew the Taurians were essential. Without their fleet, the Alliance would be missing its largest military asset. He walked down from the stage, directly toward Lord Kavi. The Taurian leader watched him approach with suspicious eyes.